Welcome, dear listener. Find a comfortable place to rest. Let your shoulders drop, let your breathing slow, and allow yourself to drift into a world of green stillness and ancient wisdom. Tonight, we journey into the forest, not with hurried steps, but with the gentle awareness of someone who has all the time in the world. The trees have been waiting. They've been here long before us, and they'll remain long after. And in this moment, they invite you to simply be. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a forest as evening light filters through countless leaves. The air is cool and rich with the scent of earth and moss. There's a quietness here that isn't empty. It's full of life moving at a different pace, full of secrets held in roots and branches. And as we explore these secrets together, let each word be like a soft step on a forest path, leading you deeper into rest, deeper into wonder, deeper into the embrace of sleep. The forest keeps time differently than we do, and tonight we'll learn to breathe with its rhythm. Beneath your feet, beneath the carpet of fallen leaves and soft soil, there exists a world you cannot see. It's a network so vast and intricate that scientists have only recently begun to understand its true magnificence. Imagine, if you will, threads finer than silk, stretching through the darkness of the earth, connecting tree to tree, plant to plant, in an underground web that links the entire forest into one living, breathing organism. These threads are fungi, mycorrhizal fungi to be precise, and they are among the most generous beings in nature. They form partnerships with tree roots, wrapping around them in a gentle embrace that has lasted for over 400 million years. 400 million years. Let that number settle softly in your mind. Long before flowers existed, before dinosaurs walked the earth, before insects took flight, these underground networks were already weaving their silent magic. A single teaspoon of forest soil contains several miles of these fungal threads. Miles in just a teaspoon. They branch and weave, split and reconnect, creating a communication system so sophisticated that researchers have called it the Wood Wide Web. Through these threads, trees share resources with one another. A mother tree, tall and ancient, will send sugars through the fungal network to her offspring, growing in the shadow of the canopy. She recognizes her own children through chemical signals, and she feeds them, even sacrificing her own growth to ensure their survival. When one tree is attacked by insects, it sends chemical warnings through this underground network. Within hours, trees hundreds of feet away begin producing defensive compounds, preparing themselves for an attack that hasn't yet reached them. They warn each other, they protect each other. The forest, it turns out, is not a collection of individuals competing for survival. It is a family. It is a community. It is a conversation taking place in the language of chemistry and connection, spoken through threads thinner than whispers. Older trees, the grandmother and grandfather trees, serve as hubs in this network. They are connected to dozens, sometimes hundreds of other trees. When a young tree is struggling, these elders redistribute nutrients, balancing the forest's resources like wise stewards managing a shared treasury. And when an old tree is dying, it releases its stored nutrients back into the network, a final gift to the community that sustained it through centuries of seasons. In some forests, these fungal networks connect different species of trees that would normally be competitors. A Douglas fir shares carbon with a paper birch. In summer, When the fir is photosynthesizing vigorously, it sends excess sugars to the birch. In spring, before the fir has fully leafed out, the birch returns the favor. They take turns supporting each other, trading resources across the boundary of species, recognizing that their fates are intertwined. This underground world operates on principles of generosity and reciprocity. The fungi receive sugars from the trees, products of photosynthesis that the fungi cannot make themselves. In return, the fungi provide the trees with water and nutrients drawn from far reaches of the soil, from places the tree roots could never access alone. It's a trade agreement written in the chemistry of life itself, a contract honored for millennia. There's something deeply comforting about this, isn't there? The knowledge that beneath the surface, invisible to our eyes, nature is engaged in constant acts of sharing and mutual care. In a world that often tells us we must compete to survive, the forest whispers a different truth. We are stronger together. We flourish through connection. And perhaps as you drift towards sleep, you can imagine yourself part of this great network too, held and nourished by invisible threads of connection that link you to everything and everyone around you. The forest remembers. Every tree is a living library, carrying within its wooden body the story of every year it has lived. If you were to cut through the trunk of an old tree, you would see these memories written in rings, concentric circles of light and dark wood that mark the passage of seasons. Each ring represents 1 year of growth. And within the pattern of these rings, scientists can read the history of the forest like a book written in wood. A wide ring tells of a year with abundant rain and warm sunshine, when the tree grew quickly and confidently. A narrow ring speaks of drought, of a difficult year when water was scarce and the tree conserved its resources, growing slowly but surviving. Years of fire leave scars in the wood, dark marks where flames touched the bark but did not kill the tree. Years of insect infestation show as rings of stunted growth, the tree's energy diverted to healing rather than expansion. But tree rings record more than just the tree's personal history. They capture the climate of entire regions. By reading the rings of ancient trees, scientists have reconstructed rainfall patterns going back thousands of years. They found evidence of megadroughts that lasted decades, of volcanic eruptions that cooled the planet and left their signature in narrow rings across continents. The trees remember floods we've forgotten, summers we never knew, and winters that occurred before any human was there to feel their cold. There are trees alive today that were already ancient when human civilization was young. Bristlecone pines growing in the high mountains of California and Nevada have been continuously alive for over 5,000 years. 5,000 years. Imagine the patience required to live so long. These trees were saplings when the pyramids of Egypt were being built. They were already 1,000 years old when Rome fell. They witnessed the entire span of recorded human history, and they were not merely passive observers. They absorbed it all into their wood, ring by ring, year by year, creating an archive more reliable than any human record. In northern Sweden, there is a Norway spruce that has been growing in the same spot for nearly 10,000 years. Its root system has persisted since the end of the last ice age, continuously sending up new trunks as old ones die, an unbroken chain of life stretching back to a time when mammoths still walked the earth. 10,000 years of memory held in roots and wood. Trees also remember their own experiences, in ways that shape their future growth. A tree that has been partially shaded by a neighbor will remember the direction of that shade. Even after the neighboring tree falls and light floods in from all directions, the once shaded tree will continue to grow more vigorously on the side that was previously dark, as if compensating for years of inadequate light. It remembers and it adjusts. When a tree is wounded by a storm, breaking a branch or tearing bark, it produces special cells to seal the wound and prevent infection. But it doesn't stop there. The tree will remember the location of that injury for the rest of its life, producing extra growth in that area to strengthen the damaged section. Decades later, long after the original wound has healed and become invisible, the tree's growth pattern still shows a subtle bulge where the injury occurred. The tree never forgets where it was vulnerable, and it spends the rest of its life reinforcing that weakness. Scientists have discovered that trees can even remember traumatic events like severe drought. Years after the drought has ended, trees that experienced it will be more conservative in their growth during hot summers, even if water is abundant. They learned caution from their suffering, and that lesson persists. Perhaps most remarkably, trees remember the seasons. They don't just respond to temperature or daylight. They count. A tree must experience a certain number of cold days in winter before it will allow itself to bloom in spring. This prevents the tree from being fooled by a brief warm spell in February. The tree waits, counting, remembering, until it has accumulated enough cold days to be certain that winter is truly over and spring is truly here. Only then does it risk the vulnerability of new leaves and flowers. As you lie here, drifting in the space between waking and sleep, consider this. You too are made of memories. Every experience has left its ring in you, shaping who you are and how you grow. Some years were abundant and you grew quickly. Other years were hard and you conserved your strength. But you survived. You're still here, still growing, still adding rings to your story. And like the trees, you carry all of it with you. The light and the shadow, the easy years and the difficult ones. All of it woven into the beautiful, unique pattern that is your life. Rest now. Let the trees remember for a while. They're good at it. They've been practicing for thousands of years. Every moment of every day, the forest breathes. It inhales carbon dioxide and exhales oxygen. Billions upon billions of leaves engaged in the ancient alchemy of turning sunlight into life. This process, photosynthesis, is the foundation of nearly all existence on Earth. And forests are its masters, the planet's lungs, quietly performing the work that makes all other life possible. A single large tree produces enough oxygen in 1 year to supply 2 human beings with all the oxygen they need. 2 people breathing comfortably for an entire year, sustained by 1 tree's patient work. Now multiply that by the billions of trees in the world's forests. The Amazon rainforest alone produces about 6% of the planet's oxygen. 6% might not sound like much, but that's billions of tons of oxygen released into the atmosphere every single year, a gift given freely by organisms that don't even breathe the way we do. But the forest's breathing is about more than oxygen. It's about balance. While releasing oxygen, trees absorb carbon dioxide, that greenhouse gas we produce in such abundance through our burning of fossil fuels. Forests are carbon sinks, massive storage facilities that pull carbon out of the atmosphere and lock it away in wood and soil. A mature forest can store hundreds of tons of carbon per acre, holding it safely for decades or centuries preventing it from trapping heat in our atmosphere. The Amazon rainforest stores something like 150 billion tons of carbon. 150 billion tons, removed from the air and transformed into trunk and branch, leaf and root. It's as if the forest is breathing in our excess, absorbing our mistakes, patiently working to maintain the atmospheric balance that makes Earth habitable. And this breathing is not random or chaotic. It follows a rhythm, a pulse as regular as a heartbeat. During the day, when sunlight bathes the leaves, photosynthesis runs at full capacity. The forest inhales deeply, taking in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. At night, this process slows. The forest's breathing becomes shallow and quiet, like yours might be now as you settle into rest. Trees continue to respire, taking in small amounts of oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide, but the balance shifts. The forest rests too. In spring and summer, when leaves are lush and green, the forest's breathing intensifies. Growth accelerates. The forest is awake and vigorous, processing enormous amounts of carbon and water. In autumn, as leaves change color and fall, the breathing slows. And in winter, in temperate forests, where trees stand bare against the sky, the forest's breathing becomes a whisper, a barely perceptible exchange of gases through bark and dormant buds. The forest sleeps, conserving energy, waiting for the sun's return. Scientists have placed sensors throughout forests to measure this breathing in real time. They've created maps showing how oxygen and carbon dioxide levels fluctuate with the seasons and even with the time of day. What they've found is beautiful in its complexity. The forest doesn't breathe as a single entity. Different species breathe at different rates. Trees at different heights in the canopy contribute differently to the overall gas exchange. Young forests, with their rapidly growing trees, breathe more vigorously than old-growth forests. But old-growth forests, with their massive trees and deep soils, store far more carbon. There's a phenomenon scientists have observed in forests around the world, something they call biogenic volatile organic compounds. These are chemicals released by trees into the air, part of the forest's exhalation. They include compounds like isoprene and terpenes, the substances that give forests their distinctive scent, that clean, fresh smell you notice when you walk among trees. These compounds serve many purposes for the trees, helping to protect leaves from heat stress and defend against insects. But they also play a role in cloud formation. The compounds released by forests help water vapor condense into droplets, seeding clouds and influencing rainfall patterns. In this way, forests don't just respond to their climate, they help create it. In the Amazon, scientists estimate that about half of the rain that falls on the forest comes from water that was previously transpired by the forest itself. The trees pull water from the soil through their roots, draw it up through their trunks, and release it through tiny pores in their leaves. This water vapor rises, cools, condenses into clouds, and falls again as rain. The forest is engaged in a continuous cycle, recycling its own water, creating the very rain that sustains it. The forest breathes out moisture, and that moisture returns as rain. Inhale, exhale, give, receive. The forest maintains itself through this endless circulation. Phytoplankton in the oceans are often called the lungs of the earth, and they do produce more oxygen than forests do. But forests are the lungs of the land. They are the reason the air in a forest feels so pure, so revitalizing. Every breath you take in a forest is enriched by the labor of countless leaves, the patient work of photosynthesis, the generous exchange of gases that trees perform without thought or expectation of reward. As you breathe now, slowly and deeply, imagine your breath joining the breath of the forest. Your inhale drawing in the oxygen the trees have given. Your exhale releasing carbon dioxide that the trees will transform into sugar and wood. You are part of the cycle. Your breathing and the forest's breathing are connected. Two notes in the same song, two waves in the same ocean. You are breathing with the forest, and the forest is breathing with you. Let that thought comfort you. Let it dissolve any sense of separation or isolation. You are held within a breathing planet, surrounded by living things engaged in the constant work of maintaining life. And for now, you can rest. The trees will keep breathing while you sleep. They've been doing this for millions of years, long before you were born, and they'll continue long after you wake. The forest's breath is steady and reliable. You can trust it. You can let go. Breathe slowly, breathe deeply, and let the forest's ancient rhythm carry you into rest. Trees talk to each other, not with words or sounds, but with chemistry and scent, with electrical signals and hormonal messages. The forest is alive with communication, a constant exchange of information flowing through the air and soil, through root and leaf and fungal thread. And this communication is not simple. It's sophisticated, nuanced, and essential to the forest's survival. When an insect begins to chew on a tree's leaves, the tree responds immediately. Within minutes, it begins producing defensive chemicals, bitter compounds that make its leaves less palatable to the attacker. But the tree doesn't stop there. It also releases volatile organic compounds into the air, chemical signals that drift on the wind to neighboring trees. These airborne messages carry specific information about the type of threat the tree is facing. Different insects trigger different chemical signatures. A caterpillar chewing leaves produces one pattern of signals. An aphid sucking sap produces another. The messages are specific and detailed. Neighboring trees that receive these airborne warnings begin ramping up their own defenses before the insects even reach them. They produce the same bitter compounds, preparing their leaves in advance. It's as if one tree is calling out to the others, saying, "Caterpillars coming from the east, prepare yourselves." And the other trees respond, "Message received, defenses activated." The forest is speaking in the language of molecules, and the trees are listening. But the communication goes further. Some trees, when under attack, release chemicals that attract predators of their attackers. A tree being consumed by caterpillars will emit compounds that draw parasitic wasps. These wasps lay their eggs inside the caterpillars, killing the pests and saving the tree. The tree is essentially calling for help, sending out a chemical SOS that says, "If you eat caterpillars, there's a feast here." And the wasps answer the call. In some species, trees can recognize their own relatives through chemical signals. Studies have shown that trees grow their roots differently when surrounded by kin versus when surrounded by strangers. When among family, trees are less competitive. They don't spread their roots as aggressively. They share resources more freely. But when surrounded by unrelated trees, they become more territorial, pushing their roots farther and faster to claim space and resources. They know who's family and who's not, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. The forest has a concept of kinship, of us and them, written in the chemistry of roots. Trees also communicate through electrical signals, much like neurons in a brain. Scientists have discovered that trees generate weak electrical impulses that travel through their tissues. When a leaf is damaged, an electrical signal travels from the injury site down through the tree's vascular system. This signal triggers changes throughout the tree, preparing it to respond to the threat. It's not a nervous system in the way animals have nervous systems, but it serves a similar function: rapid communication within the organism, allowing distant parts to coordinate their response to danger. Even more fascinating is the discovery that trees can produce sounds. When experiencing water stress, when the columns of water being pulled up from roots to leaves become too tense, trees produce ultrasonic clicking sounds as tiny air bubbles form and collapse in their water-conducting vessels. These sounds are too high-pitched for humans to hear without special equipment, but they're there, a kind of distress signal that indicates the tree is struggling with drought. Some scientists speculate that other organisms might be able to hear these sounds, that there might be insects or fungi that use them as indicators of a tree's vulnerability. The most extensive communication in the forest happens underground, through those fungal networks we spoke of earlier. This is where the most complex information flows, where trees trade not just nutrients, but news, warnings, and requests for help. Through the mycorrhizal network, a dying tree can send messages to its offspring, a final set of instructions encoded in chemistry. A tree that has learned to survive in a particular spot, that has adapted to the specific challenges of its location, can pass that learned information to other trees through chemical signals. The forest has a memory that transcends the life of any individual tree. Scientists have conducted experiments where they've damaged one plant and observed how nearby plants respond. Even when the plants are separated so their roots can't touch, and the air between them is filtered to prevent chemical signals, nearby plants still show defensive responses. Something is being communicated, something we don't yet fully understand. The mechanisms of plant communication may be even more diverse and subtle than we currently know. The forest may be speaking in languages we haven't yet learned to hear. There's something profound about this, isn't there? The idea that the forest is engaged in constant conversation, that trees are far from the silent, passive organisms we once thought them to be. They are communicating, responding, adapting, sharing information in real time. The forest is intelligent, not in the way an animal is intelligent, but in its own unique way. It processes information. It makes decisions. It remembers and learns. It is aware, in some fundamental sense, of itself and its surroundings. And perhaps this explains why humans have always felt something special when walking in forests. Perhaps we sense, on some unconscious level, that we are in the presence of a vast intelligence, an ancient mind thinking thoughts, in a language far slower and stranger than our own. We feel the communication happening around us, even if we can't understand the words. And we feel, instinctively, that we are part of the conversation, that our presence is known and registered in the forest's ongoing dialogue with itself. As you rest now, imagine the forest speaking around you. Imagine roots touching underground, fungi carrying messages through the soil, leaves releasing scents into the night air. Imagine the quiet, patient conversation of trees, a discussion that has been ongoing for thousands of years and will continue long after this night ends. You don't need to understand the words. You only need to know that you are held within a world that is far more alive, far more connected, far more aware than you might have imagined. Let the forest's conversation lull you deeper into rest. Let it be like the soft murmur of voices in a distant room, comforting in its presence, soothing in its continuity. The forest is talking. And somewhere in its ancient speech, perhaps it speaks of you too, acknowledging your presence, welcoming you into its midst, inviting you to simply be part of the conversation for a while, even if only through silence and sleep. There are trees alive on this planet that were already ancient when history began. They are the oldest living organisms on Earth, witnesses to the rise and fall of civilizations, to ice ages and warming periods, to extinction events and evolutionary radiations. They have stood in the same spot, growing imperceptibly for longer than we can easily comprehend. And they are still here, still alive, still adding rings to their tremendous bodies year by patient year. In the White Mountains of California, at elevations where few other trees can survive, grow the bristlecone pines. These trees are not large. They're often twisted and gnarled, shaped by brutal winds and freezing temperatures. Much of their wood is dead, bleached white by the sun. But in a narrow strip of living bark, the tree persists, adding a microscopic layer of growth each year. Some of these bristlecone pines have been doing this for over 5,000 years. 5,000 years. The oldest confirmed bristlecone pine, a tree named Methuselah, germinated around 2032 BCE. It was already a tree when Stonehenge was built. It was over 1,000 years old when the Buddha was born. It was ancient when Jesus walked the earth. It has lived through the entire span of recorded human history, witnessing empires rise and crumble, watching as humans developed agriculture, writing, mathematics, science, watching as we went from stone tools to spacecraft, all while standing in the same spot, growing a fraction of a millimeter per year. Think about what Methuselah has experienced. It felt the warmth of the sun when the Great Pyramid of Giza was still being constructed by human hands, dragging massive stones across desert sand. It endured winter storms while the Minoan civilization flourished on Crete, while the Indus Valley cities thrived, while humans were just beginning to work bronze and copper into tools. It stood through the Bronze Age collapse, through the rise and fall of the Assyrian Empire, through the building of the Parthenon, through Alexander's conquests, through the rise of Rome and its eventual fall. It was already 2,000 years old when the first Christian churches were built. It stood through the Dark Ages in Europe, through the Golden Age of Islamic science, through the Mongol invasions, through the Renaissance, through the Age of Exploration when humans first circumnavigated the globe. It weathered storms while the printing press was invented, while Galileo looked through his telescope, while Newton discovered gravity, while the American Revolution changed the political landscape of a young nation far below the mountains where the tree grew. Methuselah survived the Industrial Revolution, both world wars, the atomic age, the space age, the digital revolution. And still it stands, still it grows, still it adds its microscopic ring each year, a testament to the possibility of endurance, to the power of persistence, to the virtue of simply continuing year after year, century after century, millennium after millennium. The bristlecone pines grow at the tree line, at elevations above 10,000 feet, where the air is thin and the growing season lasts only a few weeks each year. The soil is poor, little more than broken rock, water is scarce. Temperatures swing wildly from day to night. Most organisms cannot survive here, but the bristlecone pine has turned these hardships into advantages. Growing slowly means using few resources. The harsh conditions mean no competition from faster growing trees. The cold temperatures mean fewer insects to attack the tree. The thin air and intense ultraviolet light produce wood so dense and resinous that even after the tree dies, its wood can stand for thousands of years, refusing to decay. Scientists study the wood of these ancient trees not just to marvel at their age, but to learn about Earth's climatic past. Each ring is a data point, a record of temperature and precipitation from a specific year. By analyzing the rings of living bristlecones and then matching patterns to the rings of dead wood found nearby, researchers have created a continuous climate record stretching back over 8,000 years. 8,000 years of weather, of drought and plenty, of warm periods and cold periods, all recorded in wood that refuses to forget. The exact location of Methuselah is kept secret to protect it from vandalism. But there are other ancient bristlecones in the area, their locations marked, and visitors can stand in their presence. To touch one of these trees is to touch something that was alive when the pyramids were new, to make physical contact with an organism that spans the gulf between the ancient world and our own. It's an experience that changes how you think about time. But Methuselah is not even the oldest tree. There is another bristlecone pine in the same region, unnamed to the public, that is over 5,000 years old. And there may be others older still, their ages not yet confirmed, their identities hidden in the high mountain forests. In California's Sequoia National Park stand the giant sequoias, the largest trees by volume on Earth. These trees are not as old as the bristlecones, but they are still ancient beyond easy reckoning. The general Sherman tree, the largest living tree by volume, is estimated to be between 2,000 and 3,000 years old. It stands 275 feet tall and contains enough wood to build a small town. Every year, this tree adds enough new wood to create a 60-foot tree of normal size. It has been doing this for millennia. Walk among the giant sequoias, and you walk among living cathedrals. The groves are hushed and solemn, the air thick with a sense of ancient presence. Sunlight filters down through the canopy in great beams, illuminating the massive trunks that rise like pillars supporting the sky. The bark is red-brown and deeply furrowed, soft to the touch, almost spongy. That bark can be 18 inches thick in places, providing such effective insulation that the living wood inside might rise only a few degrees in temperature, even during an intense forest fire. These sequoias have survived countless fires over their long lives. You can see the fire scars on their trunks, great black caves burned into the base of the tree, hollows large enough to drive a car through. Yet the tree lives on, compartmentalizing the damage, sealing off the burned tissue, continuing to grow around the wound. Some sequoias have survived. Dozens of fires, each one leaving its mark, each one making the tree stronger, more resilient, more determined to persist. The sequoias produce cones no bigger than a chicken egg, tiny containers for the seeds that will grow into the largest trees on Earth. These cones can remain closed on the tree for 20 years, waiting for fire to open them. When fire finally comes, the heat causes the cones to dry and crack open, releasing thousands of seeds onto the newly cleared forest floor. The seeds are small as oat flakes, each containing the genetic blueprint for a tree that might grow to be 300 feet tall and weigh more than 2 million pounds. The coastal redwoods, Sequoia sempervirens, can live for over 2,000 years. They are the tallest trees on Earth, some reaching over 380 feet into the sky, taller than the Statue of Liberty. These groves of redwoods create ecosystems found nowhere else. In the high canopy of old-growth redwood forests, hundreds of feet above the ground, entire forests grow. Soil accumulates in the crooks of massive branches, building up over centuries from fallen needles and trapped dust until there's enough earth to support other plants. In these canopy ecosystems, ferns unfurl their fronds in the filtered light. Huckleberries produce their blue fruits 200 feet in the air. Entire trees, including other redwoods, sprout from the aerial soil and grow. Their roots never touching the ground, sustained entirely by the accumulated earth in the branch of their parent tree. Salamanders live their entire lives in these canopy ecosystems, breeding in pools of water collected in the hollows of ancient trees, hunting insects among the ferns, never once descending to the forest floor far below. The redwoods are not just trees. They are worlds unto themselves, supporting layers of life from their roots to their topmost branches. The redwoods grow along the fog belt of California's coast, where moisture carried in from the Pacific Ocean condenses on their needles and drips down, a process called fog drip. In the dry California summers, when rain doesn't fall for months, the redwoods harvest water from the fog, capturing moisture from the air and delivering it to the forest floor. A large redwood can collect hundreds of gallons of water per day from fog alone, enough to sustain the entire understory ecosystem. The trees create their own water supply, pulling moisture from the air and distributing it through the forest. They shape their environment, making it possible for life to flourish in a place that would otherwise be too dry during the summer months. In Tasmania, there are huon pines over 3,000 years old. In Japan, Jomonsugi cedars have stood for over 2,000 years. In Sweden, as we mentioned earlier, a Norway spruce's root system has persisted for nearly 10,000 years. And in the mountains of Chile, Alerce trees, relatives of the giant sequoia, have been dated to over 3,500 years of age. These ancient trees have survived because they possess remarkable adaptations. Bristlecone pines grow in places too harsh for most organisms, which means they face little competition and few pests. Their wood is extremely dense and resinous, resisting decay even after death. Branches that die don't rot away but remain, white and polished, sometimes for thousands of years after they stopped living. The tree slowly discards parts of itself, becoming smaller as it ages, concentrating its life into a thin strip of living tissue while the rest of its body serves as armor. Giant sequoias and coastal redwoods have bark that can be over a foot thick, so rich in tannins that it's nearly fireproof. When fire sweeps through a redwood forest, the trees survive, their bark scorched, but their living tissue protected. They've evolved with fire as a regular part of their environment, and they've learned not just to survive it, but to use it. Fire clears the forest floor, allowing their seeds to germinate in the nutrient-rich ash. Fire removes competing species. The ancient trees stand like pillars through the flames, witnesses to destruction that only makes them stronger. What is it like to live for thousands of years? How does time feel to a tree that adds its rings so slowly? Does a decade pass for a bristlecone pine the way a day passes for us? Is there a subjective experience of duration, stretched and slowed to match the pace of growth? We can't know. We can only imagine. But perhaps the trees experience time as a vast, patient unfolding, a gentle progression of seasons that blends into one continuous now, each moment full and complete, unhurried and unrushed. These ancient trees teach us something about patience and persistence. They show us that life can endure, that it's possible to weather storm after storm, drought after drought, fire after fire, and still remain. They've survived ice ages and warming periods. They've endured insect plagues and fungal blights. They've felt the wind of countless storms and the heat of countless summers. And they're still here, still growing, still alive. In a world that often feels frantic and rushed, where everything seems to be accelerating, where we measure our lives in hours and minutes and our attention spans in seconds, these ancient trees stand as monuments to a different way of being. They remind us that slow can be strong, that patience can outlast urgency, that there is power in simply persisting year after year, ring after ring, adding to yourself slowly and steadily without rush or anxiety. As you lie here now, breathing slowly, sinking into rest, you are doing something the ancient trees understand. You are being still. You are letting time pass without resistance. You are simply existing, moment by moment, breath by breath. This is what the trees do at their own vast scale. They stand and grow, patient and unhurried, making no attempt to speed the passage of time or to be anywhere other than where they are. You don't need to live for thousands of years to learn this lesson. You only need to live this moment fully. And then the next moment, and then the next. One breath at a time, one heartbeat at a time. Like a tree adding rings, you add moments to your life, each one precious, each one part of the larger pattern. And perhaps, in this way, you are not so different from the ancient trees. You too are building something that will last. You too are persisting, season after season, growing at your own pace, in your own time. Rest now, as the ancient trees rest through the winter. Trust that morning will come. Trust that you will grow again. Trust in the slow, patient unfolding of your own life, ring by ring, moment by moment, held in the deep time of the forest, where 1,000 years is but a day, and a day is eternity. Light falls through the forest in layers, cascading down from the highest leaves to the darkest hollows of the forest floor. This falling light creates distinct worlds, vertical ecosystems stacked one above another, each with its own climate, its own residence, its own quality of illumination. To move from the top of the forest canopy to the ground below is to travel through multiple biomes, each adapted to a different intensity and quality of light. At the very top, in the emergent layer, individual giant trees thrust their crowns above the general canopy. These emergents are bathed in full sunlight. Their leaves are small and waxy, adapted to intense heat and light. They endure strong winds and dramatic temperature swings. Eagles and hawks nest in their branches. Epiphytic plants, orchids and bromeliads cling to their limbs, surviving on whatever moisture and nutrients they can capture from the air. This is a world of extremes, bright and windy and exposed. Below the emergence lies the main canopy, a continuous layer of treetops that absorbs most of the sunlight before it reaches lower levels. In a tropical rainforest, the canopy can be 150 feet above the ground. a green ceiling so thick that only about 2 to 5% of sunlight penetrates to the forest floor. The canopy is where most of the forest's life resides. Monkeys leap between branches, sloths hang motionless from limbs. Countless species of insects, birds, frogs, and even fish in water-filled bromeliads make their homes here. The canopy is not the top of the forest. It is the heart of the forest, the place where sunlight is transformed into life. Light in the canopy is dappled and moving, creating a constantly shifting mosaic of sun and shade as leaves move in the breeze. Some leaves are adapted to capture direct sunlight efficiently. Others are adapted to make use of the brief sunflecks that appear when an upper branch sways, creating a momentary opening through which intense light pours. These sunflecks last only seconds, but plants in the canopy have evolved to make the most of them, ramping up photosynthesis instantly when bright light appears, then switching to a more conservative mode when the light dims again. Below the main canopy lies the understory, a layer of smaller trees and shrubs that live in perpetual shade. Only about 5 to 10% of the light that reaches the canopy makes it to the understory. The light here is dim and green, filtered through countless leaves above. Plants in the understory have adapted to these low light conditions. Their leaves are often larger and darker green, packed with extra chlorophyll to capture every available photon. They grow slowly, conserving energy, waiting patiently for their chance. And that chance comes when a large tree falls. When an old giant succumbs to age or storm and crashes to the ground, it tears a hole in the canopy. Suddenly, light floods in, striking the understory with an intensity it hasn't experienced in decades. This is called a light gap, and it triggers a race among the understory plants. Seedlings and saplings that have been waiting, sometimes for years, suddenly begin growing at breakneck speed, shooting upward toward the opening, competing to be the first to fill the gap. The light gap doesn't last long. Within a few years, one of the competitors will have grown tall enough to close the opening. But for those few years, the forest floor becomes a garden, bursting with growth and possibility. At the very bottom of the forest is the forest floor itself, a dim world of fallen leaves and decomposing wood. Here, in some dense forests, the light level can be as low as 1% of full sunlight. It's a place of browns and greys, of fungi and bacteria, of insects and earthworms. This is where the forest recycles itself, where death becomes the foundation for new life. The plants that grow here are specialists, adapted to near darkness. Some, like certain species of ginger, have leaves so dark they're almost black, maximizing their ability to capture the scarce photons that reach them. But even on the forest floor, light has structure. Sun flecks penetrate here too, brief moments when the sun aligns perfectly with gaps in the canopy above, and a shaft of golden light strikes the ground. These sun flecks move across the forest floor as the sun moves across the sky, a spotlight that travels slowly through the gloom. Seedlings on the forest floor compete not just for space, but for the paths of these sun flecks, positioning themselves where light is most likely to find them. In temperate forests, where trees lose their leaves in winter, the forest floor experiences a different kind of light. In spring, before the trees have fully leafed out, the forest floor is bathed in sunlight. This brief window triggers a bloom of spring wildflowers, ephemeral plants that complete their entire life cycle in the few weeks when light is abundant. Trilliums, bloodroot, spring beauties, and wild ginger carpet the forest floor in a tapestry of colour. They flower, are pollinated, set seed, and die back, all before the canopy closes and plunges the forest floor back into shade. It's a seasonal race, a partnership with the rhythm of light. The quality of light changes as it falls through the forest, not just in intensity, but in colour. Blue light is scattered by leaves and atmosphere, while red light penetrates deeper. The deeper you go into the forest, the greener the light becomes. This is why the understory and forest floor have a distinct greenish tinge. It's not just that everything is green, though it is. The light itself is green, filtered through so many layers of chlorophyll that only the green wavelengths remain. Plants have evolved to sense these changes in light quality. They use them as signals to determine where they are in the forest. A seedling on the forest floor detects the far red wavelengths that dominate in deep shade and knows it's underneath other plants. This triggers shade avoidance responses. The seedling stretches upward, trying to escape the shade, allocating more resources to growing tall rather than growing wide. It's reading the light, interpreting its color as information about its environment. Some plants have learned to thrive in the deepest shade. Mosses and liverworts coat the forest floor in many old-growth forests, creating soft carpets of green that require almost no light. Ferns unfurl their fronds in the understory, their delicate leaves structured to capture light from any angle. And fungi, which don't photosynthesize at all, flourish in the darkness, feeding on dead wood and leaf litter, glowing in some species with a soft bioluminescence that turns the forest floor into a scene from a fairy tale. There's something magical about light falling through a forest. It doesn't just illuminate, it creates. It defines spaces and moods. It gives rise to entire ecosystems, each adapted to its own particular shade of brightness. The forest is not one place, but many places, layered vertically, separated not by distance, but by light. And each layer is full, complete, perfectly adapted to its portion of illumination. As you rest now, imagine yourself lying on a soft bed of moss on the forest floor. Above you, layer upon layer of leaves filter the moonlight, softening it, gentling it, turning it into something dim and peaceful. You're in the deepest shade, where the forest is most quiet, most still. And this is exactly where you need to be. You don't need the harsh brightness of the emergent layer or the busy activity of the canopy. You need this gentle, filtered dimness, this soft green gloom where rest comes easily and naturally. The light here is just enough. Not too bright to disturb your rest, not so dark as to be frightening. It's the perfect twilight, the ideal luminosity for sleep. And you can feel yourself settling into it, your body relaxing layer by layer, like light falling through leaves, descending softly, gently, inevitably, until you reach the deepest, darkest, most restful place of all. Let the forest's layers cradle you. Let the soft green light be the last thing you see before your eyes close. Let the filtered, gentle illumination guide you down, down, down through the layers of consciousness, from bright waking awareness to the dim understory of drowsiness, and finally to the dark, rich forest floor of deep sleep, where you can rest completely, held and hidden, safe in the deepest shade. In the forest, scattered among the leaf litter and held in the earth, lie seeds. Millions upon millions of seeds, waiting. Some have been waiting for weeks, some for years, and some for centuries, holding within their small forms the patient determination to survive until conditions are exactly right to begin their journey toward becoming trees. Seeds are miracles of compression. Within a package sometimes no larger than a grain of sand, a seed contains everything needed to grow a tree that might live for hundreds or thousands of years. It contains an embryonic plant, a root ready to push downward, a shoot ready to push upward, and a supply of nutrients to fuel the first days of growth. But more than that, it contains information, a genetic library that describes how to build a tree, how to respond to seasons, how to defend against threats, how to communicate with other trees. All of this encoded in molecules packed into a space you could hold in your palm or sometimes barely see. And seeds are patient. Some seeds remain viable for only a few days after falling from their parent tree. They germinate quickly or not at all, but others have evolved to wait. Lotus seeds found in an ancient lake bed in China, preserved in peat, were carbon dated to over 1,000 years old. When scientists provided them with water and warmth, they germinated, sprouting after a millennium of waiting. 1,000 years of dormancy, and the seeds still remembered how to become a plant. Seeds achieve this patience through dormancy, a state of suspended animation where metabolism slows to nearly nothing. The seed dries out, reducing its water content to less than 10%. In this dehydrated state, chemical reactions occur so slowly that the seed barely ages. It's as close to stopping time as biology can manage. The seed becomes a tiny time capsule, preserving the potential for life across decades or centuries, waiting for the right moment to unfold. But how does a seed know when the right moment has arrived? Seeds are not passive. They're constantly monitoring their environment, even in dormancy. They sense temperature and moisture. They detect light, some species requiring light to germinate and others requiring darkness. They measure the length of cold periods in winter, ensuring they don't germinate during a brief, warm spell that will be followed by killing frost. They count days of cold just as adult trees do, accumulating information about the season, waiting until their internal criteria are met before committing to the irreversible act of germination. Some seeds require very specific triggers. Certain pine cones are sealed with resin and only open to release their seeds when exposed to the intense heat of a forest fire. These trees, like the giant sequoias we discussed earlier, have evolved with fire as part of their life cycle. Their seeds wait inside tightly closed cones, sometimes for decades, until fire sweeps through the forest. The heat melts the resin, the cones open, and thousands of seeds fall onto newly cleared nutrient-rich soil. The fire that killed the parent tree also creates the perfect conditions for its offspring to thrive. Other seeds require passage through an animal's digestive system before they can germinate. The seeds are encased in a fruit, eaten by a bird or mammal, and then excreted some distance from the parent tree. The digestive acids scarify the seed coat, weakening it and making it permeable to water, while the passage through the gut removes germination inhibitors. The seed is then deposited in a pile of natural fertilizer, ready to sprout. The seed has traded a meal for transportation and preparation, a deal negotiated by evolution over millions of years. The animal gets nutrition from the fruit flesh, and the seed gets dispersal and improved germination conditions. Both benefit from this ancient partnership. Some seeds are designed for wind dispersal. Maple seeds have wings that cause them to spin as they fall, like tiny helicopters, carrying them far from the parent tree. Dandelion seeds have fluffy parachutes that catch the slightest breeze, floating for miles before settling to earth. These seeds sacrifice weight for distance, carrying minimal food reserves but maximizing their chances of finding new territory where competition might be less intense. Other seeds are heavy and nutrient-rich, designed to stay close to the parent tree. Acorns and walnuts carry enough stored energy to support a seedling for weeks or even months as it establishes itself. These seeds don't travel far on their own, but they attract squirrels and jays who carry them away to cache for winter. Many of these caches are forgotten, and come spring, the seeds germinate far from where they fell, planted at the perfect depth by an animal who thought it was storing food, not planting a forest. In some species, seeds can remain viable in the soil for extraordinary lengths of time, forming what scientists call a seed bank. These buried seeds wait for disturbance, for the day when ploughing or fire or a falling tree exposes them to light and air. Studies have found viable seeds in soil samples over 100 years old. When brought to the surface and given water, they germinate, producing plants from varieties that may no longer exist anywhere else in the living forest. The seed bank is a genetic archive, preserving the past against an uncertain future, maintaining diversity that might be lost from the actively growing population. There are stories of seeds germinating after even longer periods. In the 1960s, scientists germinated date palm seeds found in an ancient fortress at Masada in Israel. These seeds were 2,000 years old, preserved in the dry desert air. The seedling that grew was named Methuselah, after the ancient bristlecone pine, and it represented a variety of date palm that had been extinct for centuries. The seed waited 2,000 years, patient beyond human comprehension, and when given the chance, it remembered how to grow. Arctic lupine seeds discovered in the Yukon, buried in lemming burrows in permafrost, were dated to over 10,000 years old. When scientists attempted to germinate them, some sprouted, producing flowers identical to those that bloomed when mammoths still walked the earth. 10,000 years of dormancy, and the seeds retained their viability, their instructions for life perfectly preserved by cold and darkness. The mechanisms that allow this extreme longevity are remarkable. Seeds protect their genetic material with proteins that shield DNA from degradation. They fill their cells with sugars that form protective glasses when the seed dries out, essentially freezing biological processes in place without the damaging effects of actual ice crystals. They produce antioxidants that neutralize free radicals that would otherwise damage cellular machinery. They shut down all but the most essential maintenance processes, entering a state so close to death that the boundary between living and non-living becomes philosophical rather than biological. There's something profound about this patience, this willingness to wait. A seed doesn't struggle or complain about its waiting. It simply waits, perfectly content to remain a seed until the conditions for growth appear. It doesn't worry that those conditions might never come. It doesn't grow anxious about the passage of time. It exists in a state of pure readiness, potential held in perfect stillness, waiting without impatience for its moment. And when that moment comes, the transformation is sudden and dramatic. Water seeps through the seed coat, rehydrating the embryo. Enzymes activate, beginning to convert stored nutrients into energy. Cells that have been dormant for decades or centuries suddenly begin dividing. The seed swells, the coat splits, and a tiny root emerges, pushing blindly downward into the soil, anchoring the seedling. Then a shoot pushes upward, seeking light. Within days, the seed has transformed from a dry, seemingly dead object into a living, growing plant. The waiting has ended. The journey has begun. But even after germination, the journey is not easy. A seedling on the forest floor faces immense challenges. It must compete with established plants for light and nutrients. It must avoid being eaten by insects, trampled by animals, or infected by fungi. It must survive droughts and floods, heat waves and frosts. Most seedlings die within their first year. They germinate, struggle, briefly, and then succumb. For every tree that reaches maturity, thousands or millions of seeds fail. But some survive. Through a combination of chance and resilience, a few seedlings find the right spot, the perfect combination of conditions that allows them to persist. They grow slowly at first, adding just a few leaves each year, gradually building strength. They might spend decades in the understory, barely growing, waiting for a light gap. But they're alive, and they're waiting, just as they waited as seeds. And when their opportunity comes, when an old tree falls and light floods their location, they're ready. They've been ready all along. This is the wisdom of the seed: to wait without anxiety, to remain ready without exhaustion, to trust that the right moment will come, and when it does, to respond with all the vigor and life that has been conserved during the waiting. The seed teaches that patience is not passive. It's active preparation, potential held in reserve, strength conserved for the moment it will be needed. As you lie here now, drifting towards sleep, you are like a seed in winter, waiting for spring. Your body is entering its own form of dormancy, slowing its processes, conserving energy, resting deeply. This is not time wasted. This is necessary. This is how you prepare for tomorrow's growth. Just as a seed must have its period of dormancy before it can germinate, you must have your period of sleep before you can wake refreshed and renewed. And you don't need to worry about when you'll wake or how the waking will happen. Your body knows, just as a seed knows. Somewhere deep in your biology, processes are running that keep time, that monitor your rest, that will gently wake you when the time is right. You can trust this. You don't need to stay alert or maintain control. You can let go completely, sinking into the deep dormancy of sleep, confident that you'll return when you need to, when your internal spring arrives. For now, you wait, not with impatience or anxiety, but with the perfect patience of a seed, still, quiet, resting, holding your potential within you, conserved and protected, safe in the earth of sleep. And when morning comes, you'll be ready to grow again. But that's for later. For now, there is only this moment, this quiet, this peace. For now, there is only waiting, and waiting is enough. Rest now, like a seed in winter. Wait, without worry. Sleep deeply and completely, and trust that when it's time to wake, you'll know. Until then, let yourself be still. Let yourself be dormant. Let yourself be at peace, held in the patient darkness, dreaming of the tree you'll become. There is a practice in Japan called Shinrin-yoku, which translates to forest bathing. It doesn't involve water or swimming. It simply means walking slowly through a forest, taking in the atmosphere through all your senses. This practice, formalized in the 1980s but rooted in ancient traditions, has been extensively studied by scientists, who wanted to understand why spending time in forests makes people feel so good. What they discovered is remarkable. The forest is not just beautiful, it is medicine. When you walk in a forest, you breathe in compounds called phytoncides. These are antimicrobial, volatile, organic compounds that trees release to protect themselves from bacteria, insects, and fungi. Different trees produce different phytoncides. Evergreen trees like pines, cedars, and spruces produce them in abundance, which is why evergreen forests have that distinctive, clean scent that seems to clear your lungs and sharpen your mind. When you inhale these compounds, they enter your bloodstream and produce measurable effects on your body. Studies have shown that exposure to phytoncides increases the activity of natural killer cells in the human immune system. These are white blood cells that attack tumor cells and virus-infected cells, one of your body's primary defenses against cancer and infectious disease. After a 2-hour walk in a forest, natural killer cell activity increases by about 50%. After a 2-day forest visit, the boost can last for a month. The forest is quite literally strengthening your immune system just by letting you breathe its air, sharing its chemical defenses with you, protecting you as it protects itself. But the benefits go far beyond immune function. Time in forests has been shown to reduce blood pressure, lower heart rate, decrease cortisol levels, reduce sympathetic nervous system activity, and increase parasympathetic nervous system activity. In less technical terms, the forest shifts your body from a state of stress and alertness to a state of rest and relaxation. It activates the calm response, the opposite of the fight-or-flight response that dominates modern life. Your adrenal glands stop pumping out stress hormones. Your blood vessels dilate, reducing the strain on your heart. Your breathing deepens and slows. Your muscles release their tension. All of this happens automatically, triggered simply by your presence among trees. People who spend time in forests report reduced anxiety, improved mood, increased ability to focus, and better sleep quality. These are not placebo effects or mere subjective impressions. They've been measured in controlled studies, compared against walking in urban environments or exercising indoors. Researchers have used standardized psychological assessments, measured stress hormones in saliva, recorded heart rate variability, and conducted brain scans. The data is consistent and compelling. The forest is uniquely beneficial. There's something specific about being among trees that promotes health and well-being in ways that other environments cannot replicate. Part of this effect comes from what researchers call soft fascination. The forest environment captures your attention in a gentle, effortless way. The play of light through leaves, the movement of branches in the wind, the patterns of bark and moss, the sound of birds and rustling leaves, the scent of earth and growing things. These engage your senses without demanding intense focus. This allows the part of your brain responsible for directed attention, the part that gets exhausted from work and screen time and the constant demands of modern life, to rest and recover. The forest gives your mind permission to wander, to daydream, to simply be without purpose or goal. This mental rest is as important as physical rest, perhaps more so in an age where our attention is constantly being harvested and commodified. Hospitals have noticed this effect and begun to incorporate it into their design. Studies show that patients recovering from surgery heal faster and require less pain medication if their hospital room has a window overlooking trees, compared to a window overlooking a brick wall or parking lot. Just seeing trees, even through glass, without smelling the forest air or hearing its sounds, promotes healing. Patients with views of nature report less pain, need fewer doses of strong analgesics, have fewer post-surgical complications, and are discharged earlier than patients in rooms with views of buildings. The effect is so pronounced that some hospitals now deliberately place post-surgical patients in rooms with nature views, treating the view itself as a form of medicine. In some cultures, this healing power of forests has been recognized for centuries or even millennia. Indigenous peoples around the world have long understood that forests are sacred spaces, places where the boundary between the physical and spiritual becomes thin, where healing occurs on multiple levels simultaneously. The forest provides not just physical medicine in the form of medicinal plants, but spiritual and psychological medicine through its presence, its atmosphere, its quality of silence and peace. Modern science is now confirming what traditional wisdom has always known. The forest is a doctor, and its prescription is simple. Be present, breathe deeply, open your senses, and allow yourself to receive what is freely given. The sounds of the forest contribute significantly to this healing effect. Natural soundscapes, the rustling of leaves in wind, the calls of birds, the sound of flowing water, all have measurable effects on the autonomic nervous system. They reduce stress markers, lower blood pressure, and promote relaxation more effectively than silence or white noise. There's a reason that meditation apps and sleep aids use forest sounds. Our bodies recognize these sounds as signals of safety. For millions of years, our ancestors evolved in environments filled with these sounds. They indicated the presence of water, the absence of immediate danger, the availability of shelter and resources. At a deep, unconscious level that predates language and conscious thought, our bodies hear forest sounds and relax, recognizing that we're in a place where we can let down our guard, where we can rest without fear. The colors of the forest also play a role in its therapeutic effects. Green, the dominant color of forests, is the color our eyes are most sensitive to. We can distinguish more shades of green than any other color, a sensitivity that makes perfect evolutionary sense. Our primate ancestors lived in forests and needed to distinguish between different types of vegetation, to identify ripe fruit against green leaves, to navigate through complex three-dimensional environments where survival depended on the ability to interpret subtle variations in color and texture. This evolutionary history means that green is inherently restful to human eyes and minds. Studies show that viewing green environments reduces mental fatigue and improves concentration more effectively than viewing environments dominated by other colors. The color green is coded into our biology as a signal of life, growth, and safety. Even the fractal patterns found in nature contribute to the forest's healing power. The branching of trees, the patterns of leaves, the structure of ferns all exhibit fractal geometry, patterns that repeat at different scales. Research has found that viewing fractal patterns reduces stress and produces a state of relaxed awareness. Our brains are somehow attuned to these patterns, finding them inherently pleasing and calming. The forest is full of fractals, and our unconscious minds respond to them with a sense of rightness and peace. In recent years, some doctors in Scotland have begun prescribing nature walks to patients with high blood pressure, anxiety, and depression. The prescription is specific: 20 minutes in a natural environment 3 times per week. This is now considered a legitimate medical intervention, as effective as some medications for certain conditions and with 0 side effects. The forest is being recognized officially as healthcare. There's something deeply comforting in this, isn't there? The knowledge that nature is not indifferent to us, that the forest offers more than just beauty and resources. It offers healing, it offers restoration. And it asks for nothing in return except that we show up, that we be present, that we open ourselves to receive what it freely gives. You are not in a physical forest right now. You're lying in bed, listening to these words, drifting towards sleep. But perhaps, in imagination, you can feel the forest around you. Perhaps you can sense the soft air of a forest evening, cool and rich with the scent of earth. Perhaps you can hear, in the distance, the rustle of leaves and the quiet calls of birds settling for the night. Perhaps you can see, behind your closed eyes, the gentle dimness of the forest floor at twilight, softly illuminated by filtered moonlight. Let that imagined forest work its medicine on you now. Let your breathing slow to match the pace of the forest. Let your heart beat steady to the rhythm of trees swaying in a gentle breeze. Let the tension drain from your muscles as if absorbed into the earth beneath you. You are forest bathing, without moving, taking in the atmosphere of the forest through memory and imagination, and your body responds as if the forest were real, because in the place where healing happens, the forest is always real. Feel your immune system strengthening. Feel stress hormones dissipating. Feel your nervous system shifting from alertness to rest. The forest is healing you, even now, even here, because you carry the forest within you. The part of you that responds to trees and green and natural sounds is ancient and deep. It predates civilization, predates agriculture, predates language itself. And it's still there, still listening, still responding to the call of the wild. Rest in the forest. Be held by the forest. Let the forest do what it has always done for humans, what it will continue to do for as long as forests exist. Let it heal you, restore you, bring you back to balance and peace. You don't need to do anything. The forest's medicine works without effort on your part. You only need to be present, to breathe, to rest. And you're already doing that. You're already receiving the gift. So sleep now in the imagined forest, in the remembered forest, in the eternal forest that exists in the deep memory of your species. Sleep under the protection of ancient trees, breathing air purified by leaves, listening to sounds that signal safety and peace. Sleep as humans have slept for countless generations, under branches and stars, held by the earth, surrounded by the quiet presence of trees. The forest watches over you. The forest keeps you safe. The forest whispers, rest now, heal now, be at peace. And in the morning you will wake restored, as if you had spent the night in the deepest, oldest, most healing forest on earth. Because in the place that matters most, in the deep interior of your being, you have. And now, dear listener, our journey through the forest draws toward its gentle close. We've walked together through underground networks and ancient trees, through breathing leaves and chemical conversations, through layers of light and patient seeds, through the healing presence that forests offer to all who enter them. We've learned that the forest is not a collection of separate things, but a unified whole, a community, a conversation, an intelligence that thinks in centuries and speaks in chemistry. But more than facts and information, I hope you felt something as well. I hope you've felt the peace that comes from connecting with something vast and old and ongoing. I hope you felt the comfort of knowing that you are part of nature, not separate from it, that your breathing and the forest's breathing are connected, that your life and the life of trees are woven from the same threads of carbon and water and sunlight. The forest teaches us about patience, about waiting without anxiety, about growing slowly and steadily, adding ring after ring, moment after moment, without rush or panic. The forest teaches us about connection, about how strength comes from community, from the invisible networks that link us to others, from the support we give and receive in ways we may never fully see or understand. The forest teaches us about resilience, about surviving storms and fires, droughts and floods, and still remaining, still growing, still reaching toward the light. The forest teaches us that life persists, that it adapts and changes and finds a way, that even after destruction, new growth emerges from the ashes. And the forest teaches us about rest, about the necessity of dormancy, of winter, of lying quiet in the darkness and conserving strength. The forest knows that growth and rest are not opposites but partners, that each makes the other possible. You cannot grow without rest. You cannot rest deeply without trusting that growth will return. So as you drift now into sleep, carry these lessons with you. Carry the patience of ancient trees. Carry the connection of underground networks. Carry the resilience of forests that survive fire and flood. Carry the wisdom of seeds that wait for the right moment. Carry the healing presence of phytoncides and green light and soft fascination. Carry it all with you into the night and let it become part of your dreams. You are connected to the forest, whether you're physically in one or not. The oxygen in your lungs was produced by leaves somewhere on this planet, released as a gift from photosynthesizing cells in trees you will never meet. The water in your body has cycled through roots and branches, through the vascular systems of plants, through the soil of forests. The carbon in your bones was once part of ancient trees, absorbed from the air, built into wood, released back into the ecosystem through decay, and eventually incorporated into your body through the food you eat. You are made of forest. You are built from the same molecules that build trees. You are part of the great web of life that includes every tree that has ever grown. And that connection can never be broken because it's not metaphorical or poetic. It's literal, it's biological, it's real. So sleep now, knowing you are held by something larger than yourself. Sleep knowing that the forest continues its patient work while you rest, breathing in and out, communicating through roots and air, growing imperceptibly, adding rings of memory and life. Sleep, knowing that you are part of this, that your rest is woven into the larger rest of nature, that your dreams are dreamed in a world where trees dream too, slowly and deeply, of rain and sun and seasons yet to come. Let your breathing become so slow and deep that you can hardly tell where your breath ends and the forest's breath begins. Can you feel it? The gentle rhythm, the soft exchange of gases, oxygen flowing in, carbon dioxide flowing out, your lungs, and the forest's leaves performing the same ancient dance, the same exchange that has sustained life on this planet for hundreds of millions of years. You are breathing with the forest. The forest is breathing with you. There is no separation, no boundary, just the continuous flow of air and life. Let your heart beat slow to the rhythm of sap rising in spring, patient and steady and inevitable. Your heart beats about once per second, a quick rhythm by the standards of trees. But if you could slow your perception of time, if you could experience time the way a tree experiences it, your heartbeat would feel like the slow pulse of sap in spring, rising from roots to leaves, carrying water and nutrients, sustaining life through patient circulation. Your heart and the tree's vascular system are performing the same function, moving fluid through a living body, maintaining life through circulation. You are not so different from the trees. You are kin. Let your thoughts disperse like seeds on the wind, scattered and drifting, no longer needing to be held together by conscious effort. Thoughts arise and float away. Some land and take root, growing into dreams. Others drift off into the darkness, forgotten, unimportant. You don't need to chase them or hold on to them. Let them go. Let them scatter. Like seeds, they will find their own way, and some will return to you in the morning, germinated into new ideas, new insights, new understandings. But for now, let them drift. Let them disperse. Let them go. Let yourself dissolve into the forest, becoming leaf and root, branch and bark, soil and seed. The boundaries of your body are softening, becoming permeable, allowing you to merge with the forest around you. You are the earth beneath your body, solid and supportive. You are the air you breathe, cool and clean. You are the darkness that surrounds you, peaceful and complete. You are the forest, and the forest is you. And there is no difference, no separation, only the continuous whole of life experiencing itself. You are safe here, completely safe. The forest has stood for millions of years, weathering everything the earth could produce, and it remains. Mountains have risen and eroded. Continents have drifted. Ice ages have come and gone. And through it all, somewhere on this planet, forests have persisted, adapting and changing, but never disappearing, always finding a way to continue. The forest is one of the most enduring phenomena on Earth, and you are part of it. You are held by something that has survived every catastrophe, every change, every challenge that time could present. You can trust it. You can rest in its presence without fear or worry or anxiety. Nothing can harm you here, in this place of green light and soft air, where time moves differently, and patience is not a virtue, but simply the way things are. In the forest, there is no rush, no urgency, no pressure to be anywhere or do anything. There is only being, only existence, only the slow and patient unfolding of life at its own pace. And you can rest in this. You can let go of all urgency, all pressure, all demands. For now, for this night, you are in the forest, and the forest asks nothing of you except that you simply be. Feel yourself sinking now, not falling, but being gently lowered, like a seed settling into soil, finding its place in the darkness, preparing for a rest that could last through winter or through centuries. It doesn't matter. Time has stopped meaning anything. There is only this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, this peaceful descent into the rich earth of sleep. You are sinking into the soil of rest, being covered over with the soft leaf litter of quietness, being wrapped in the gentle darkness of deep sleep. The forest floor receives you as it receives all fallen things. Leaves fall and are received. Branches fall and are received. Eventually, even mighty trees fall and are received, welcomed back into the earth from which they came. And you too are being received now, welcomed into rest, embraced by the soft earth of sleep. The forest does not judge what falls into it. It it simply receives, accepts, and begins the slow work of transformation, turning everything back into life, into energy, into possibility. You are being received now, accepted completely, welcomed into the darkness without judgment or criticism or demand. And as you sink deeper, you might notice that the boundaries of your body are becoming unclear, undefined, less solid. Are you the sleeper, or are you the forest? Are you breathing, or are you being breathed? Are you resting, or are you the rest itself? These questions don't need answers. They're not problems to be solved, but mysteries to be experienced. Let them drift away like leaves on a stream, beautiful in their moment and then gone, replaced by deeper quiet, by fuller peace, by a silence so complete it holds all sound within it like a forest holds its birds. Somewhere on earth right now, in a forest you may never visit, a seed is germinating. A root is pushing down into the darkness of soil, seeking moisture and nutrients, anchoring itself. A shoot is pushing up toward the light, seeking the sun, beginning its journey toward the sky. Life is beginning, patient and determined, and full of potential. And somewhere else, in another forest on another continent, an ancient tree is adding one more ring, one more year to its thousands of years. Barely growing, but growing nonetheless. Faithful to its nature, true to its purpose, continuing because continuing is what it does. And between these moments, between the germinating seed and the ancient tree, between beginning and enduring, between birth and persistence, you rest. You rest as deeply as a seed in winter, as peacefully as a forest at twilight, as completely as the earth itself when it turns away from the sun and lets darkness bring its healing silence. You are resting in the space between moments, in the pause between breaths, in the stillness between heartbeats. You are resting in the eternal now, where the forest lives, where time doesn't pass, but simply is. The stars are coming out above the forest. They always do. Day fades, night arrives, and the stars emerge, puncturing the darkening sky with their ancient light. These are the same stars that shone on the first forests 400 million years ago, when plants first reached toward the sky and created the first tree-like forms. These are the same stars that will shine on forests yet unborn, on forests that will grow millions of years from now on, an earth we cannot imagine. And under these stars, right now, the forest breathes its slow breath, and you breathe with it, slower and slower, deeper and deeper, until breathing becomes so subtle, so gentle, that it's less like breathing and more like existing, pure and simple and complete. The night insects are singing their quiet songs. Crickets chirp in steady rhythm, counting out the temperature with their calls. Katydids rasp their wings together, creating a sound like leaves rustling. Somewhere in the distance, a nightjar calls, a strange liquid trill that rises and falls like water flowing over stones. These are the sounds of the forest at night, the sounds that have accompanied sleep for countless generations of humans, the sounds that our ancestors heard as they drifted off under the protection of trees. Your body recognizes these sounds at a level deeper than consciousness. They signal safety, peace, the right conditions for rest. An owl calls, soft and questioning, asking its eternal question of the night. Who? Who? The question needs no answer. It's part of the forest's conversation with itself, one voice among many, speaking into the darkness. The owl is hunting, using its asymmetrical ears to pinpoint the movements of mice and voles on the forest floor. But its call is not aggressive or threatening. It's simply part of the soundscape, part of the forest's nighttime chorus, part of the lullaby that the forest sings to itself and to all creatures within it. The wind picks up slightly, moving through the canopy high above. You can hear it approaching before you feel it, a sound like distant ocean waves, growing louder as the wind moves through the trees. The leaves rustle and whisper, thousands of voices speaking at once, saying nothing and everything. The branches sway and creak, old wood flexing, strong but not rigid, bending but not breaking. The wind passes through, carrying with it the scent of distant places, other forests, other ecosystems, connecting this place to everywhere else through the movement of air. And then the wind fades, and the forest settles back into stillness. The insects resume their songs. The owl calls again, farther away now. The creek in the distance continues its endless murmur, water moving over stones, working its slow way downhill, patient and persistent. Everything continues. Everything flows. Nothing stops, but nothing rushes either. The forest moves at its own pace, and that pace is exactly right. Rest now, fully and completely, without reservation or fear or holding back. Let the forest hold you as it holds every living thing, with patience and strength and eternal presence. Let sleep take you as gently as light falls through leaves, filtering down through layer after layer, softening with each passage, dimming with each level, until finally it reaches the forest floor as a soft green twilight, barely bright enough to see but full of life, full of possibility, full of peace. Let sleep take you as gently as fog settles into a valley, slowly and softly, filling in from the bottom up, erasing the landscape bit by bit until everything is wrapped in soft white silence. Let sleep take you as gently as snow falls on the forest, each flake settling onto leaf and branch without sound or impact, accumulating slowly until the entire world is hushed and white and perfect. And as you drift away, as consciousness dissolves like morning mist in sunlight, like dew evaporating from leaves, like fog burning off under the rising sun, remember this one thing: the forest is still here. Right now, as you sink into sleep, the forest continues. The trees are still growing, adding their microscopic layers of wood. The networks are still connecting, fungi passing molecules from root to root. The breath is still flowing, leaves releasing oxygen into the night. The seeds are still waiting, patient in their dormancy. The ancient trees are still standing, witnessing another night in their thousands of nights. And you are part of it all, now and always, held in the web of life that connects everything to everything, from the smallest microbe in the soil to the oldest tree in the mountains, to the stars themselves, burning with light that will reach Earth long after we're gone, after our civilization is dust, after our species is a memory. The stars will still shine, and somewhere forests will still grow. You are part of the forest, and the forest is part of you. You are made of the same atoms, governed by the same laws, participating in the same great cycles of matter and energy that have sustained life on this planet for billions of years. And that connection, that belonging, that deep and ancient relationship continues even now, even as you sleep, even as you dream. The forest dreams you as you dream the forest, and in this shared dreaming, all separation dissolves like salt in water, like sugar in tea, completely and permanently, until there is only one thing, only unity, only the wholeness that was always there beneath the illusion of separation. There is only peace now, only rest. Only the soft green darkness of deep and healing sleep, wrapping around you like a blanket woven from twilight, tucking you in gently, holding you safely, promising that morning will come but that it's far away, so far away that you don't need to think about it, don't need to prepare for it, don't need to do anything but sink deeper into this perfect moment of rest. Good night, dear listener. Sleep well, sleep deeply, sleep peacefully. The forest watches over you with its 1,000 eyes, each star a eye looking down through the canopy, each watching leaf reflecting the night. The forest keeps you safe with its ancient strength, its deep roots, its patient wisdom. The forest whispers its final blessing as you fade into dreams. You are home, you are held, you are exactly where you need to be, exactly who you need to be, exactly how you need to be. Nothing needs to change. Nothing needs to be different. You are perfect as you are, complete as you are, whole as you are. And in the morning, when you wake, the forest will still be here, still breathing, still growing, still standing, still waiting to welcome you back whenever you need its peace, whenever you need its strength, whenever you need to remember that you are not alone, that you are part of something vast and ancient and enduring. Until then, rest. Just rest. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more is possible. Only this. Soft, gentle, peaceful, complete, perfect. Rest. The trees are singing their silent song. Can you hear it? Listen closely. It sounds like wind, but it's more than wind. It sounds like breath, but it's more than breath. It sounds like the quiet pulse of life moving through wood and leaf, the slow circulation of sap, the gentle exchange of gases, the patient addition of cells, one after another, building a tree that might live for centuries. It sounds like time stretching out into forever, like eternity compressed into a single moment, like the beginning and the end speaking to each other across the gulf of years. It sounds like home. Sleep now, drift now, release now, let go now. The forest has you. The forest holds you. The forest keeps you. The forest will never let you go. You are wrapped in wood and leaf. You are buried in soil and root. You are dissolved in air and water. You are part of the forest, and the forest is part of you, and there is no separation, no boundary, no difference. There is only the forest, breathing slowly, and you breathing slowly, and the two breaths becoming one breath, and the one breath becoming no breath, and the no breath becoming pure peace, pure stillness, pure rest. The last stars are fading into sleep themselves. The night is deepest now, darkest now, quietest now. This is the hour when sleep is easiest, when rest is deepest, when dreams are truest. This is the hour when the world pauses between one day and the next, when the earth holds its breath, when the forest stands most still. And in this stillness, you too are still, so quiet, so peaceful, so complete. Rest, 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 the forest whispers. Sleep, sleep, sleep. The leaves murmur, dream, dream, dream. The wind sighs, and you do? You rest, you sleep, you dream. And in your dreaming, you are the forest, ancient and strong, patient and enduring, green and growing, alive and eternal, here and now and forever, held by the earth, reaching toward the stars, breathing with the world, part of everything, one with everything, dissolved into everything, until there is no you, no forest, no separation, only peace, only rest, only the soft green darkness, only sleep, only dream, only good night.